whether it is nanotechnology, whether it's robotics, whether it is life sciences. Technology is a great leveler. You can spend $1 billion on research and get nothing out of it. And you can spend nothing because you have a brain and you have learned a little more than others, and you can actually start businesses at a very, very low capital. And a person like me who could finance a large company, I mean reasonably large company, or I found it small, but it became a reasonably big company, just by using his salary itself suggests that today, 50 years back, 20 years back, capital was more important than the skills today. And that is another perspective that for me, what happened, or for them, 30 years, what has happened in the last 30 years has been a huge change. But what will happen for you over the next 30 years will be much, much faster. And that is, for me, a great leveler. It will churn a lot. And how do you basically create a framework in your mindset, in your societies, that it allows the newer activities, newer technologies to come up, take the good things out of it, and still ensure that the bad things don't end up affecting the societies in a way, because that's happening in many societies, including our neighborhood. That somewhere the societies start kind of looking hugely inward, and they don't want any external influences. And that starts putting the society back, the citizens back, the youth back, in terms of not being able to see the future. And somewhere on the line, what India has done is very, very unique. That, as I think he mentioned, that we are all technology savvy youth. And for me, India has created that impact in the mind of the youth, that technology is going to save you, technology allows you to leapfrog. And for me, that's kind of a difference between, say, India, although it's still pretty poor, but the hopes are tremendous because of the way it has come up. And the traditional businesses or traditional business families slowly are now also becoming professional, but they are also creating what we call angel networks, VC networks, to finance others. Earlier, we used to have a concept called caste, which used to, the business families used to be part of a different caste and they would finance only their families. Today I see, especially in large cities in India, they are financing every guy who has ideas, who has some experience, and who can actually create businesses. So in a sense, India has learned from Silicon Valley. Many of us, not me, but many of my friends have come back from Silicon Valley. They have been benefited quite a lot from there, and they have come back. They want to do what they saw there, and it's a very, very unique sort of model. It is the Indian, but it can be replicated in, say, Malaysia, Indonesia, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and so on and so forth. And I'm sure Bangladesh is seeing similar stuff, but in different industries. Pakistan is seeing similar activities, but in different industries. And all of them are basically run by what I call technological entrepreneurs in a sense.
Thanks. I'm going to stick with finance for a bit. What I'm going to also encourage is, anyone who'd like to jump in and make a further comment. I'll ask an individual, but please feel free to jump in as well.
Well,
finance
is a challenge. But if you have an idea and if you have conviction what you want to do, there are people ready to support you with the money and who's from outside of your family. I think what you need is a bankable plan, clear vision. I think very important for an entrepreneur is to be a visionary. If you are not a visionary, you cannot be an entrepreneur. Simple. If you do not see long-term, 30, 40 years from now, and you say my company will make 2,000 crore turnover at the end of 30 years, you have a chance to get money, otherwise no. So finance is a challenge, but it's really you how to convince others to put money at risk.
Yeah, the definition that I like to use of entrepreneurship is the ability to articulate a vision of the future and then make it happen come what may. And there are a few pieces in there. There's the ability to articulate that vision of the future, and then there's the make it happen come what may.
Yes, sir. Just on the finance thing, there's no point in trying to pretend that the environment we're currently in globally is an easy one to raise finance. It isn't. It is incredibly difficult in all our countries. In the UK, trying to get funding for even established, profitable businesses at the moment is next to impossible. You know, they always turn around and say for an entrepreneur, you look to the 3 Fs, friends, families and fools. And I would say that you should do that, but be very careful in relation to taking money from friends or family. But what I would say is that, you know, just even yesterday looking at Derby, the slum in Mumbai, you know, you can do a heck of a lot with little. You know, and I think that we went through a period in the UK of strong, stable economic growth for 10 years in the run-up to the recession. And with growth comes a degree of sort of, you become complacent. And you think you need more money than you actually do. And I think the need for fiscal responsibility, a clear understanding of what you are doing with your business, where you are going to put your money, do you need to rent big offices, can you work virtually, can you do more with less, needs to be looked at. You know, for the time being, where funding is difficult, there needs to be other ways of how you can grow and develop your business.
I was reading a book, and he said that most entrepreneurs actually aren't driven by money. They're driven by bringing an idea out there and making it succeed. So that's actually quite counterintuitive to what people would perceive as entrepreneurs. You know, and as you mentioned in the beginning, that 20 years ago in India, as late as 10-15 years, as early as that, it was considered very negative to have a money-making mindset. You know, it used to be, there's a term that says you're very money-minded, which at some point along the way became a compliment. However, it wasn't so. And I would say that the biggest challenge for entrepreneurs, those who have to raise finance, in today's day and age, at least in India, with the world looking at us as the next growth economy, is not so much about raising finance, because you know, today in India it is easier to get up to 5 to 10 lakhs financing for your business without giving personal guarantees. But it's a lack of understanding a revenue model. That a lot of entrepreneurs go out there to bring their ideas to reality, but they don't know how do you really make the money. And I see this as a huge challenge with a lot of young entrepreneurs especially, is that they may get the VC funding, or they may get the angel funding, or however much they raise the money. But once they put it into a business, they don't know, you know, they come with stuff like, oh, advertising is my revenue model, or something weak like that. So the biggest challenge for us is how do you churn that money that's available to us into giving the returns, even for all the FII and FDI that we have in the country, as opposed to other countries where the challenge is more about raising finance.
Family businesses.
I have a word for the Indian finance entrepreneur. We call him frugal entrepreneur. The guy doesn't need much money, but even whatever he needs, he may not have. But he uses his money really, really well. Right? So for me, it's not about how much money you have. It's about how you use what you have.
So, you know, the family businesses, they sort of the ultimate angel networks, because or angel investors, because they provide money with advice in a usually very unconditional way. And I think the point about family businesses now starting to come together and fund others in networks is a very powerful one. And I think I do not know how much that's happening around the region, but it is starting to happen in India now, and it's very positive. And I think as it becomes more inclusive and starts spreading, it'll be that much more powerful. What I'm going to do is to do one more question, and then we're going to open it up. So the question has to do with a point that was raised a few times in the panel by different speakers on risk and failure. And that very often one of the things that keeps people from being entrepreneurs is this fear of failure, this fear of falling. I'm going to start with Alex this time and say, how do you deal with it? What are the ways? One of the the Silicon Valley, which is always held up as this model for entrepreneurship. It has many other problems, but entrepreneurship, there's lots to learn from it. But one of the things that is striking there is that they say when venture capitalists get together and look at founding teams, they usually try to find one person in the founding team who has failed as an entrepreneur, because the learnings are so powerful that it actually helps the success of the new enterprise. So in that sense, actually having been a failed entrepreneur is seen as an essential criteria for future success. That's a long way away from where many of us come in our own environments, where failure is seen very differently. How do you go about addressing this? What can one do?
Well, as someone who's failed a few times, particularly things I've tried to set up, when you fail, you get that sick feeling in the pit of your tummy. You lay awake at night, you panic about things, and unless you have actually felt that, you never know what it truly means like to try really, really hard. You never want to feel that again. Now, in relation to failure itself, I think that a big issue we have is in relation to the education systems. We put so much effort and so much onus on. You know, our education system in the UK and in countries across the globe makes our students and our young people risk averse. You know, people have got an idea, you know, it might be about designing a new bottle or a new manufacturing process or something like that. And instead of taking a bit of risk and throwing it out there and going, you know, what do you think of it? But people turn around and go, you know what, that's a stupid idea. People are afraid of people saying that. But unless you actually throw it out there, you'll never know. And there's some great ideas which people just hold to themselves and don't give out because they are risk averse, because they're worried about failure. I personally feel that failure is critical to success. The only thing I'd say is never fail more than once at the same thing, otherwise that shouldn't be a business you should be investing in if the person's failing at the same thing every time.
If I'm allowed to share a short anecdote. This is a personal story. It really defined my thinking when I got into business. When I was a student in the US at the University of Southern California, I had this one class called Business Statistics, and I completely hated the class. So I called up my mother, who was in India. I was in Los Angeles. I called her up one night and I said, look, you know, I'm doing well in all the other subjects, strategy, marketing, everything's fine. But this business maths, you know, the teacher is awful, I don't get the class. I don't think I'm going to make it. Of course, at that time I meant that I get 65 and not 95 or whatever expectations were. My mother, being an Indian mother, and I'm sure a lot of you relate to this, but absolutely hyper. She said, how can you possibly think of failing? You know, take tuition classes, call your brothers, repeat the class. But she was just getting very dramatic. I said, you know what, this is not helping, please give the phone to dad. So my father, I tell him, he said, I don't think I'm going to get so many good marks in business statistics. And what he told me really changed my life. He said, you know what, it's okay if you fail. Because you have to learn to fail. He said there are a lot of students who've always been a topper through school and college, and then when they enter business, the tiniest failure for them is a setback. And if you don't learn to handle that when you're a student, you're not going to be able to handle that when you join business. Well, fortunately for my mother, I did not fail the class, but I realized that, you know, failure, especially public failure, is something that you have to face in business. And in India, I would say the root cause of this failure stigma really comes because we are unable to differentiate leadership from academic excellence. I had seen in my school in Bombay, the girl who got the best marks became head girl, even though she had no leadership capability. And it's true, it's not like she's doing big things in life these days. But I lost the contest, and my marks weren't so good. But I said, look, there's so much we can do for the school. No, it's those who got 99.99% who will be a leader. So the first thing we need to understand, I'm sure all of you can prove this, it's not the person who came first who's an entrepreneur. It's the person who learned to fail and get back up and smile, who learned to be the entrepreneur. Thanks.
Well, if you are not a risk taker, you're not an entrepreneur. The first qualifying definition that you're a risk taker. I look at failure as an opportunity to climb up and to gather yourself to, climb up to the next level. So the failures are part of life, I mean, you fail in your relationships, you fail in your emotions, you fail in your class and, colleges. But the failure in business is a must. You have to take it in your stride and take that as an opportunity to move forward. You are enriched with your knowledge. And you won't make that mistake again. And if you make a mistake again, you're stupid. Then don't make business. there's no scope for making mistake again and again in business.
And what I have seen is, if you play any sports from childhood, it teaches you how to lose and still be there, right? Next day again you have to go back. And that's where basically I think the sports culture is more important not for the physical health of the nation, but it's basically much more important for the emotional sort of quotient of the nation, that it allows you, basically trains you from the childhood about how to lose, how to prepare again, come back, and so on and so forth. So for me, the second part is even more interesting, is many people become risk averse because of their personal situation. It's not only that they don't like to fail, but they have personal situations which don't allow them to take up those risks. So in a sense, everyone has a unique unique situation at a particular time in which he is allowed to do things. So in some sense, I won't blame people I won't blame them for not taking risks. It's just that they had a different situation in which they couldn't take that risk.
So learn how to fail, preferably learn how to fail early and young in school or in college, and see it as a natural process of learning and moving on. The point about risk, when people have done studies of entrepreneurs' risk profiles, they do risk assessments of people. What they actually find is that entrepreneurs, and this we come across as being somewhat surprising, they actually when they measure risk taking, they find that entrepreneurs are actually not more risk. They're not more risk taking than any other achieving group in society. So then, let's say, managers of companies or doctors or lawyers or whatever, they're not any more risk-taking. What makes them different is that they see risk in a different way. They don't see that particular, from the outside, what is seen as highly risky, the entrepreneur actually sees as being entirely within his or her control. So it's not so much the risk-taking propensity that entrepreneurs have, as the way in which that risk is seen, that one actually thinks that one can control the outcome to a much greater extent than what the outside world sees. And so it's the risk profile is a different risk profile. So, okay, let's turn it open to questions. And if you could, there are mics floating around, so if you put your hand up, then someone will bring you a mic here, in front here. And what I would request, please, is if we can limit it to questions so that we give the panel the opportunity to respond.
Yeah, hello, good morning. My name is Vaibhav Mittal and I represent Mahindra & Mahindra. While going through the panel, it was a very good discussion which we had. The topic was all about access to finance, infrastructure and regulation network or regulation framework in the country. But what we realized is that of late, we have been talking about the spirit of entrepreneurship and more of the finance part. Personally, I have been very closely associated with a lot of entrepreneurial activities through many chapters of CAAYE and other places. So what I feel is personally that there are 5 pillars to any entrepreneurial activity, and those are access to infrastructure, cheap infrastructure, where you can have the right kind of infrastructure for the entrepreneurs to work on. Second is access to finance, cheap finance. The third one is the education, the shift in education paradigms. What we look at in India is more on building professionals like engineers and doctors. We don't work on making professionals or individuals for entrepreneurs. We don't teach them to being an entrepreneur. It's more of a zeal which comes in from inside, that people like Tushar and others actually turn on to entrepreneurship. And the fourth one is the spirit, as you told about. And the fifth one is that the entrepreneurial is a global phenomenon which we look at. So what I feel is that we have to take clue from the global things which are happening, and one of the very closest examples is the way Chilean government is working on inviting entrepreneurs to Chile through a startup Chile framework where they give $40,000 for everyone who comes into Chile, which actually gives them access to 1 year of visa regime, and they want them to come and build an entrepreneurial ecosystem over there, build companies over there, and employ Chileans over there, and pass on the baton to these Chileans. And what we have seen is that India is the third largest country to put in the effort into Chilean government, where we have more than 35 companies from India going to Chile and starting a startup over there. So why not we think of a Startup India kind of a fund, where Government of India puts in the money and actually help entrepreneurs from across the world to come to India, not only like Indian governments and Indian companies to actually access that finance, but also getting in people from outside and build a complete framework of ecosystem over here with respect to the entrepreneurial system. And incidentally, it was started by a Stanford graduate called Shia in US, who studied in Stanford and moved to Chile. The second thing is that what we feel is that India is missing out on the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor. That's a London School of Business assessment which is done around 56 countries across the world. And India is the only missing country where they don't assess India.
Could we, yeah, just, can you stick to, you have a question?
So my question is, number one question is, can we look at something like and how CAAYE can help in terms of building a entrepreneurial ecosystem with respect to kind of starting of a Startup India kind of a fund? And second is, and can we look at the help from CAAYE with respect to having India included in the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor? That will help us, see ourselves amongst the companies.
Fine, thank you. So maybe what we can, if you like, what we can do, let's take a few questions. Yeah, and then we'll, and if we could restrict to questions and not comments, please. Yeah. Maybe you have to just keep the mics on. Try that.
Good morning to the respected panelists. Three things we came out from the panel. One is risk, second is trade, and third is pay. Keeping the spirit, all these three, what we should do. We should be keeping our spirit with the risk, what is going to do.
So there's a question coming.
Yeah. So, I just want to ask whether we should keep our spirit with the risk, or with the safe, or with the feeling.
If you have a small child at home, and you see how the child crawls, gets up, falls, gets up, falls, and walks. At the end, it starts running. Now, as I said, and Naushad put it very rightly, how do you perceive risk as a risk? A doctor who's doing an operation which runs for, say, 9 hours for an open eye, he doesn't see as a risk. He looks at his job. If you as an entrepreneur and say, this is what I want to, and this is what I want to do it, and this is my job, you look at risk totally different way. So I think you have to look at risk in a different way. And anything what you do in life is risk. You're driving a motor car. There was a bus accident where a driver had an heart attack, 9 people died. So that's a risk anyway. So don't look at risk as risk. Risk is just one element of what you're doing. Then you're not adverse to the rest. That's what I would say. So your spirit brings up to look risk. It's like painkiller. If you have a pain, you take a painkiller. Spirit is your painkiller. It makes you excited to get money, it makes you excited to get market share, it gets you excited to manufacturing, to people and everything.
More questions here.
I am Shankar Jadhav from KC. Maybe I can request Ashish to speak on how we are helping entrepreneurs get the capital required through the SME market that we have built.
The new framework on sort of helping small entrepreneurs, that we have a SME segment on BSE. If you want to set up a new company and want to list upfront, you need to have post-issue capital around $700,000 US, or probably $500,000 US. And if you have a company which is running, then for last 3 years or more, then you need to have a post-issue capital of only less than $200,000. So basically, really small and tiny companies are coming to the BSc, and practically every day we are getting newer entrepreneurs, different types of businesses which we had not thought about. For example, I have a business listed by 5 plastic surgeons who got together, set up a company, and all of them are using the same equipments and create a business. So we are getting newer business models being tried out on a public market instead of private venture and so on and so forth. And what happens for me, an entrepreneur has two needs, which are in a sense divergent. One is what I call income need, that when you do a business, you start getting income and you get satisfied. And then second is what I call wealth need, that you require to create a wealth so that if income goes down, you have a wealth, right, to fall back on. And listing on an exchange, what it does is, it converts your income into wealth. Because you start getting market capitalization, which you can use as a currency to even take over other companies, do newer things, get more funds. And that's a very, very impressive way of thinking. Many entrepreneurs who had not thought about this are now working on it. In addition, it allows you to benchmarking with other peer groups, succession planning, and so on and so forth. But what I see is this is a massive power that has been, a massive force that has been unleashed in the Indian society, that even a small guy can come, list his company, and think of becoming a billionaire with the help of other people's money. And it's not a debt, unlike what you take from banks, it's a debt. This is your partners. You are bringing in partners, not from private equity guys, not from venture capital guys, but your vendors, your suppliers, your customers, your relatives, your friends, people who don't know you. And that's an unbelievable force that is just now actually being unleashed into the Indian market. I'm sure many of the young entrepreneurs from India sitting here would be able to take advantage over the next couple of years.
Question? Maybe take two last questions then. Somewhere at the back, yes, thanks.
Good morning, I'm Shashank Deshpande and I'm the winner of CAAYE this year. So I'm a final year student of engineering. We are taught to love technology, to innovate, but we don't know how to make money, as it was addressed by the panel. So when we go to the venture capitalists or the angel networks, as it's put, venture capitalists invest to make money out of it, obviously. So when the market sees the need of potatoes than technology, they ask us to sell potatoes. So we cling to our idea because we have innovated and we like it. So, how do we handle such kind of situations, when the market doesn't require the technology, still we want to make money out of it?
Have a shot at that and I'll have a shot at that too.
No, what if you go ahead?
So, find the right venture capitalist is what I would say. There is this passion in the country for certain kinds of businesses. But I think if you actually go to enough people, and if you especially go to some of these family business networks, I think you'll find that those family business networks are very open to looking at business ideas that cover a very wide range of different industries and different businesses. So I would say find the right kind of venture capitalist. Tushar, you want that?
The Indian tradition is Guru and Shishya. You have to find your mentor to guide you, because then he will advise you what are your ideas, how you can put it, how you can package it, what are the risks you have getting the money. Sometimes, Ashish, I'm a very highly advocate of when you give away your equity of your business, you're cutting your hands and limbs. And that's the most costly way to raise money. So keep that, all these things you need a mentor to tell you who has gone through this cycle.
Take a shot. I have actually...
While I work with a lot of techies and entrepreneurs and I understand your predicament, I'm on the other side trying to get smart techies to understand that market reality is different. One of my professors told me something that always stayed in my brain. He said, great technology cannot sell itself. And when I work with really intelligent engineers, they have this mindset that we're going to make this earth-shattering product, and then as soon as it's ready, or even halfway ready, people are going to line up outside the door to buy it. And that doesn't happen. And that is generally the reason why most engineer-driven entrepreneurship companies fail is just because they do not put in a mind in saying that, look, I made this fantastic product, but I actually have to go sell it, I have to go market it. They're expecting a pull strategy that everyone's going to line up. The way that it works, at least it works for me, because I am a very tough and mean boss, is I force some of the techies that we have to go meet customers. And I think once they get like a firing from customers and really, get their technology berated in a way, they understand that, look, we may have made the most earth-shattering, Nobel Prize-winning product, but we have to convince someone why they need it. And I think that good things are done when you have the left brain guys with the right brain. When you have engineers spending time with people on the field and understanding what it is that customers want. And while this is easier said and done, the biggest challenge I see for entrepreneurs is that they have to respect people who are on the sales and business side. Somehow, I don't know what part of engineering school puts this in engineers, that you guys are the smart ones in the company. Yeah, well, your salary is coming from the sales guy. So I would say that as long as all the entrepreneurs really, pound it out in the streets and meet customers and face that whatever failure, rejection, risk, once you figure that out, you should be able to sell your own product. And so any person who has really succeeded, whether it's up to Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, is not because they were just fantastic techies, but because they understood market realities and they enjoyed facing customers with the products that they made.
So I am an engineer, I sympathize. The way I look at it is, ultimately, meaning of business, why you do business is to make money, right? So whatever we do, especially as entrepreneurs, finally has to generate positive money. And I'll give you my own example. I'd set up a business which today is worth $4 billion, but I was an employee of government sort of company, so I didn't get anything out of it. But when I came out and I wanted to set up another stuff which people were already buying from me, nobody gave me money. I went to venture capitalist friends and they said, our ticket size is minimum $5 million, so when you reach that level, you come to me. I went to private equity guys, they said, boss, below 50 million, I don't even look at you. So finally what I had to do is to do a job and to set up my company. But for that, I need to understand that it is, as Devita said, it's basically about going to the customer, getting abused practically, right? And getting, learning to understand how does one person give you even 1 paisa, okay? Even 1 rupee, even a $1 or 1 cent. Why would he give you? Once you start learning how to take money out, it's easier to sell your product. But that is the most sort of tricky thing. And once it starts rolling, so you start somewhere, whatever the current capital permits, you start becoming a businessman, become flexible, because again, business is not about having only long-term vision, but evolving vision. It cannot be sort of a 40-year vision where you start running and nobody is running with you. So you need to take people along, you need to work with it, and at some point in time, people start trusting you because you have given them results at much lower cost in the competition, and they start finding, even your sort of buyers will start financing. I have seen that all the time happening with everyone. So don't be disheartened, just start somewhere, but start somewhere which is commercially viable for somebody to pay you something.
So I fully agree with the comments about going out to the market, trying out things. I'm not sure about the engineering entrepreneurs, but we'll take that in the coffee break. Thank you very much for your attention, ladies and gentlemen. I'll turn things over to Rahul.
Thank you very much to the panel. We just, as a token of our appreciation for all the panelists, I'm going to request our past national chairman, Bhairavi, to hand out one of our very publications that are very close to our heart, released by our past president, Dr. Abdul Kalam. It's a young Indian's book on the change that we want to be. Bhairavi, please. Thank you very much, and we will have a very short coffee break because we are running over time. And since the coffee is being served in this hall, as soon as the panelists are on the dais, I request everyone to get back in their chairs, please. Thank you very much.